Working?
What do you
Yeah.
want to do?
Testing.
Test speak from micro, audio setting. Open windows, allow Zoom workplace to testing. Yeah. It's hard for you to. Thank you very much. Roll call, Judy Murphy. Here. Chiarello,
Here.
Nancy Freyer. Teresa Coleman,
Here.
Catherine McGill,
Here.
Megan Richards,
Here.
Ida Rotz.
Yep.
Jörg Zimmermann.
Yep.
Okay. Oral communications. Does anybody have anything on oral communications? Something that's not on the agenda? No. I have one, and that is that we're going to pull forward an agenda item because we have a guest here. And the other one is I want to give a heads up so that everybody will have a lot of time. I would like us to think possibly to move our meeting up a little bit, maybe to 5, maybe to 5:30, maybe to 6. See how everybody feels. It will go on the agenda at some point in time. Because if we meet earlier, then Kim from the fire department, maybe staff. What are you? Oh, thank you. Would have a better opportunity to come to our meeting. So we can't discuss it. I just want to put for you to, because you would have to be able to, it's just a thought. Okay, and then we'll approve the minutes and then we'll pull Eliza forward. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? Any changes?
No, I read through them. They're good. I move we approve them as written.
Okay,
I also.
second, all in favor?
Well,
Aye.
I was not there.
Okay, one abstention. All right, Eliza, if you need to come to the microphone. So Eliza, yeah, she sent an email. She has this idea of putting up an owl box at the Frog Pond. She's going to present this to us and then we can discuss the pros and cons.
Yeah, is it all right if I hand out some images?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Eliza.
You need to speak. You need to speak.
Okay.
We'll pass it.
All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Eliza. Thank you for letting me crash your meeting. I appreciate it. I'm a local high schooler and I've lived in Portola Valley for 16 years. And I'm here to talk about putting an owl box up in Frog Pond Park. So I'm a volunteer for an organization called Raptors Are the Solution. And I know the Conservation Committee is already involved in helping get rodenticides out of our town. And Raptors Are the Solution is also working on this. So as part of my duties as a volunteer and part of my schoolwork, I have been building some owl boxes in my school's wood shop. And you can look on your printout to see one of the owl boxes I've made. And now that I've made some owl boxes, I'm looking for places to put them up. And the reason I'm making these owl boxes is because owls, specifically barn owls, are a great way to move away from rodenticides and towards eco-friendly methods of pest control, because a single barn owl family can eat 4,000 rodents a year. So that's a big difference for me. And nest boxes support breeding, especially in areas that have houses and areas where big trees with sizable cavities might be harder to find. So I'm hoping to put owl boxes up around the town of Portola Valley. I've already put one up near my house, but actually in Mayor Hasco's backyard, because there used to be an owl box there when I was probably 7. And I remember walking around the loop and seeing the owls, the little owlets, and the owl pellets on the ground. And then the box fell down, so I replaced it. And you can see the image of my owl box up in the tree now. And we're hoping to get some owls soon. And I'd like to expand from just that one location to further around Portola Valley. And Frog Pond Park is a great next step because it's a really fantastic piece of habitat. It has all the things owls will be looking for. It has great access. So in other words, the owls could see the box from far away, especially in the one tree that I've decided is sort of best candidate. It also has a lot of unmowed grass near it, not just the little pond with, or the vernal pool and the surrounding grasslands, but in the area around there in the Portola Valley Ranch up by Corte Madera, there's a lot of oak woodland with great habitat. There's also very little use of rodenticide in that area of the town. Corte Madera doesn't use rodenticides. The ranch is pretty good about it. So I would feel good about encouraging owl reproduction there. There's also limited populations of gray horned owls in that specific spot because it's more of an oak woodland and less of a forested area that gray horned owls, which predate on owlets of barn owl owlets, prefer. So I'm really excited about the idea of putting a barn owl box up at that site, and I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, comments?
Great idea. Certainly in favor of it.
I live near Corte Madera School and we had some successful barn owls nearby, so I agree it's probably a good spot for them. I'm curious what your choice tree would be.
Yeah, you can see it if you flip your page over. I've been out there a couple times looking for the best tree, and I've identified this one. It's a little hard to see, but this is, imagine you're standing, sort of staring at the school. To the right is sort of the parking lot, and straight out is the school. I think that's a great spot because it's a big, heavy tree that can support the mounting of an owl box, and it also has a great access point. So one of the prime concerns about mounting an owl box is you want the owls to be able to see the opening, which is pretty small from very far away. So this tree, which is a pine, its branches slope a little bit upward and outward, so it's not obscuring the entrance. So barn owls could see from even all the way across the meadow that there's a great nesting spot.
It's a pine tree, did you say?
Yes, I'm like fairly sure of that, but I'm not 100% sure, I'm gonna be honest.
Because, pine trees are flammable trees and we recommend that they are being taken down.
Perhaps let me see.
Yeah, but remember the budget was cut, so we didn't remove, so they are there around the Frog Pond there, a handful.
So I have a
They- they-
question. Is this, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that they are on the short list for being removed, so.
Okay, that's certainly an interesting consideration. Though. I can that.
Yeah,
I
Ma-
was not checking for that. It's a very interesting concern, though. Yeah.
So, and
cer-
we could obviously, help work with you to choose a good tree.
Yeah.
Is it on Frog Pond open space per se, or is it in Frog Pond Park? You know the difference between the two?
I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay, one's on the open space where the pond is on the pond side of the trail.
Yeah.
And Frog Pond Park, which some people call the road remnant, is on the other side of the trail and is not protected open space in the same way.
Yeah.
It's where it used to be very thickly vegetated. Now it's been cleared a lot for fire. So after that description, can you know which one it's
Yeah.
on?
It's definitely on the pond side. It's maybe
Yeah, I think
a couple dozen meters from the pond.
Okay, because in some ways, it would be great to put it in Frog Pond Park because Frog Pond open space is already protected by the town,
Mhm.
fairly. And an owl box that the school was using for educational purposes and stuff, if that went into Frog Pond Park, then when discussion comes up about, what to do with Frog Pond Park, we'd have one more thing on our side to say, oh, no, you shouldn't build there because there's this lovely thing that's going on. So I think it'll be a great idea
Yeah.
to do it.
certainly.
And I feel pretty strongly that we should put it in the park and not on the open space just to be savvy about the future and what might want to be done on that property.
there were more comments here.
I have a couple of questions. Who would maintain it and how would it be maintained?
Owl boxes are pretty easy to maintain. They need a yearly cleaning in between the nesting cycles. I can do that. Basically you need a ladder, and the owl boxes I've designed are really easy to clean because they have big tops and sides that pop open. So that's not something you have to worry about.
How high up will this be? I'm just picturing you going on a ladder. How high up?
Fair. Owl boxes can have success as low as 8 feet. Ideally, they'll be a little higher. So somewhere in the 12-foot range would be a good range. Yeah.
And you're gonna grow up very fast and be gone to college, and then who's gonna take care of this owl box?
Well, the good news is my family lives here, so I'm gonna still be coming home. I'll be here definitely once a year at a minimum. Yeah, I can promise that I'll be taking care of this owl box, or I'll find a replacement. I won't leave the owlets to, yeah.
Well, and what do we know about the Barnowl territories in terms of how territorial are they? I think they are. And what do we know about other owls in town? And is this a good spot in terms of there aren't any right there, or do you know?
Yeah, excellent question. So the big concern for barn owl territories is they're not hugely concerned with overlapping with each other, but they don't want to overlap with great horned owls, because great horned owls will
Yeah.
snag beetle to normally the chicks. So I went out there last night actually after the zoo talk, or not the zoo talk, the other mountain lion talk, to get a sense of what owl populations we have over there. And I did a quick nighttime owling survey, and I don't think there's any, yesterday there weren't any barn owls there, which is a good sign because it's great habitat, so we could certainly attract some. And even more notable, I noticed that there was great horned owl kind of deeper into the ranch territory, but not in that more open woodland area, because typically the great horns try and stay where it's a little more forested.
Were there some more comments, Dieter?
Yeah, I have a few comments. One is on the maintenance. It's important that the box is constructed so you can clean out the previous year's nest.
Mhm.
Most birds like to start fresh.
Certainly.
The second one is, this here looks on that fairly large trunk tree, looks okay. It's high enough, but you want to be, if the trunk of the tree is not too big, you want to be high enough, because snakes like to go up there after the young birds. So,
Yeah.
and one more thing about the timing now. Next week will be April, and don't be surprised if there is no activity this year anymore. Sometimes we had a former colleague here on the committee, and he said sometimes it takes 3 or 4 years for a barn owl to set up shop. Okay, and then lastly, some years ago we had one of these meetings here, and I actually bought this was a group from Oakland, I think. I bought 2 boxes, one for barn owls and the other one for, I think, screech owls. And they have different openings and what have you. And so I put great effort into it. I got a special protective coating for the outside that would be good for the birds, and put them up. And about that year, maybe even the year before, I no longer heard barn owls. They're very characteristic, on a nice spring or summer evening, you can hear them screeching along. And it turns out there are probably people in the neighborhood that use rodenticides.
Yeah.
And it just wiped them out. So my boxes are there for the rent and it's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all. Good luck.
Any other?
Do they eat frogs?
No, they're mostly rodent focused. Yeah, the frogs think that's good news.
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, then I would say the process, we don't own the town owns the land. So my assumption is that maybe we have a motion that we support it and approve it, and then it probably has to go to the town for their approval. So it will take a little bit of time.
Yep.
So do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. So you're in business for the time being. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
And
it.
I
One
encourage you
last
to work,
comment.
to work
So-
with the committee to the extent that we can be helpful.
Yeah, actually, that brings,
Well, in some ways, it'd be nice to be involved in where you finally choose to put it.
yeah. Maybe, Jörg, would you like to be the point person because you live in the ranch and you know best the trees over there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm also in charge of the frog pond, so to speak. So yeah, we can stay in touch and walk. and
That's
pick if
great.
we-
So Yogi is in charge, so you guys, perfect.
But Dieter has.
So I have one more
Dieter.
comment, and that's orientation. We would like to, if you can, have for the entrance hole, an easterly exposure.
Has
And
to be
keep
a-
it out of the hot westerly sun here.
Mhm.
So when mid-afternoon comes, that there is some shade.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So much, I appreciate it.
For household items, I just would like to make a record. Patsy is on Zoom, David Cardinal is on Zoom, and a person whose phone number is 6504. Oh, that's Dana.
That's Dana.
400. Okay, that's Dana. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the agenda. Next item is election of secretary. Nancy decided not to be the secretary. So we'll have an election today. Do I hear?
So with great thanks to Teresa for her attention to detail over these years, I'd like to nominate Megan.
Second?
I second the nomination.
All in favor to have Megan as a secretary?
I
Unanimously, Megan has been hired as secretary. Thank you. And yeah, I also would like to thank Teresa. You have done it for how many years? Many, many. So thank you so much.
She was doing it when I
yeah.
became chair. so-
Many hours, many hours. Thank you. All right. Moving rapidly along, let's do the site permits. 111 Escobar. Whose is that?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, okay. You got the floor.
So that was, I believe that was the one, where there really wasn't a landscape plan. This was just basically an expansion of their driveway. They wanted to update the driveway and they had to include a fire truck turnaround. Thank you. And, leave most of the, existing landscape. There were 3 oak trees that they proposed removing, and we approved all of them, because they interfered, they interfered with the driveway plan. And we also suggested removal of a few pine trees and a couple of cypress trees. And their plan is really just to add some western red buds. So it's very small, minor. It's
Okay.
mostly the trees.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to 41 Stonegate. Teresa?
There was nothing controversial in the suggested modifications. This is the 4th review over the last 3 years for that particular parcel, so they just wanted to move some shrubs.
Yeah. I just, yeah, I think I drove past it today. The house is done, not much landscaping. Not yet. Okay, and then 5588 Alpine Road.
So there weren't issues that are ready to be brought in front of the committee at this point for that one. We went up and took a look. It's a very unique property. And we had several suggestions of opportunities to secure the hillside with natives and made those recommendations to the homeowner. I think that one is probably going to come back. It really did not have a planting plan per se. So I have a feeling that was a little early yet, but we did certainly go up and make a lot of suggestions and recommendations.
Any other comments on that property? Nope. Okay, so that's the site permits. Then the trees, obviously we don't need to do the finalized tree removal template. We did that last time. The draft tree removal permits, we have this wonderful draft tree removal permit process, which you got in Appendix E. Did everybody have a chance to read this? So it's basically 6 steps. I'll just quickly go over it for the audience. So the resident submits the application to the town, and the town refers to the Conservation Committee, as we are the deciding body if a tree is approved or not. Point 2, staff sends the application to the Conservation Committee chair upon receipt. Chair passes the application to the tree subcommittee, which at the moment is Nona, Dita, and I. And we try to keep the subcommittee in place, although we will take on apprentices because we want to be really fair with it. We want to do the same criteria every time. Within 2 weeks of getting the application from the town, the chair passes the application. Within 2 weeks of getting the application from the town, the committee visits the property, encourages the applicant to be present at the visit, and writes the report. And it is a good idea if the applicant is present, because it's then easier if it could to sort of rule out controversy. We are very, Dita is very persuasive sometimes to keep a tree alive. And then point 4, the report is sent to staff by the chair within 1 week after the site visit, if the evaluation is simple. And for the off chance that it is a complicated, a very complicated case, and there is a disagreement, then we agendize it and bring the draft report to the next monthly meeting, and the full committee can give input and approval. And then staff sends the completed permit and the Conservation Committee report to the residents. Our report often has more than, or covers more than just the tree. We see other things and we give recommendations for other things. So it's a very useful, we think, report for the applicant to see. And then point 6, the final point, the resident can appeal, or applicant can appeal to the Planning Commission if they strongly agree with the report.
Disagree.
Disagree. Disagree with the report. Thank you. Any feedback?
So I had a question on if there is disagreement and the report is brought before the committee, where you say in there that we review it and approve it. I'm just curious. So you're assuming there will always be resolution at our committee meeting, one way or the other, of whatever the outcome is?
Well, as I'm interested what other members think. As we are the governing body, we have to come up with a recommendation. Yes. And at the end, we are 9 members and we can vote. And then the majority carries, I would think.
I agree with that. I think we're the deciding body. and if we
Microphone,
can't-
microphone.
Microphone.
We're the deciding body, and if we can't decide in the subcommittee, we bring it to the whole committee, and that's where the decision is made.
And actually, not necessarily if we can't decide in the subcommittee. If it is a contention, it doesn't mean that the subcommittee can't decide. It's something where the applicant might be very strongly upset or
Agreed.
whatever. And so then I think that's much more likely the case than that we can't agree. And then we are 9 people and we put together and then the majority carries. Does that answer your question, Teresa? You have a question, Nancy? No, okay. All right, so any other?
I just want to comment that I think it's really important that we do this. It's almost like, well, we've been doing this for so long. Why do we suddenly need a process? But I think with all the turnover at the staff level, there needs to be something that really spells out the steps, because I think there was an interim period where they didn't even know that we were supposed to be getting the tree permits, and they were just kind of stamping them and sending them back. So to have a codified, if you will, process to give to planning is really important. So then my question is, we approve this, I assume, with whatever changes people might want to make. And then how do we get it? Is it, since we're the deciding body, I think we can just, I would check with Rebecca here, but I think we can just give it to planning. I don't think it's the kind of thing that we need to go through the council, because we're simply
Yeah.
enumerating the steps that we already take. We're just making them a little more
Yeah.
precise and putting time limits on it.
Yeah, I agree, because there is, this is already happening. So Gabe, who gets those, he sends them religiously right away when he gets them. And we are also religiously going out and writing them up very quickly. So there is no contention or anything. The town is very clear. We are the deciding body, and we just have put it now into a nice little spreadsheet so that the town has something to say, because if they now send a maybe contentious report to the applicant, the town can say, if you have an issue, you can go to the planning commission and take it from there.
So what the additional thing that needs to be done is that this doesn't match what the language on the website for getting your tree permit is. And so that language, we should draft the new language for that. And then that probably does need approval because it's on the website somehow. I'm not sure exactly, what the official next steps would be, but we clearly need to work on that language also.
Do you have a comment? No, it's
think-
just more
No, I
specific.
think that what it says on the website is that it will always come to the whole committee. And that's so inefficient and slows down the whole process for the applicant that we evolved away from, can't even remember when a whole committee did it. So that's the only piece of it that's out of sync.
Is it the town policy to, if there's a contentious situation and the resident disagrees, that it does go to planning commission and not the ASCC? Is that standard?
In the charters for everything, conservation has the determining, we're the body that determines the tree permits. And in every other thing, we're advisory to ASCC, but in that particular one, we're not. So I don't think it would go through ASCC. I think it would go to planning, because they are the appeals body for all of these things.
Has there been circumstances where people have ever gone to planning? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Wait, Judy, you brought up the planning commission. Where did you get this from?
Just that in terms of the hierarchy of the town, that's the way anything having to do with building, zoning, the larger geographic kinds of things goes to planning, with the council being the final decision making, but go that far. And we could actually, we put it in just to be complete. I don't think anybody's ever appealed it. There've been people who, grouched, but I'm not aware that was ever appealed. But it's reasonable to let them know they could appeal.
Yeah, I have a comment. It was very recently, my understanding, appealed that the Conservation Committee recommendation was not followed. I'm, the newest member of this committee, so I can't pretend that I know the whole process very well, but it sort of blew up on PV Forum. Went against what we recommended. I was out of town when it happened, but it kind of really blew up in a negative way.
That was one of the things that led to us
is that,
codifying it.
so I'd like
Yeah.
to understand what happened there and what we're proposing that's different now.
I
so
can
that sort of
explain.
thing won't happen.
That's a very good comment. So we had this issue on Corte Madera Road with 25 trees. And that at the end was a misunderstanding between the Conservation Committee and the town staff. It was a simple error. It was a misunderstanding. It was not that the town willingly or judged against us. It was a misunderstanding. Yeah.
So can I just ask if, since there seems to actually be a process, have we gone back to carefully review our proposed process versus what is actually in place before we vote on this? It's not that, I don't think there's a problem with what's being proposed. It just would be reassuring to know that we were not going against something that's already in place. and
This
has
is
been.
actually exactly what is in place, except the planning commission, because we have never had a case.
So I'm just looking at the website for the tree, and it's much more lengthy process than what this is proposed. They are recommend, or they're saying that we will bring it to the meetings and we'll discuss it at, it'll go on an agenda for a meeting, and then the committee will go out. And so it's not exactly even really very close to what we do right now. So it should be updated, and it should be done in a way that demonstrates that we're trying to address the speed of getting these
Yeah.
things approved as
Yeah.
fast as possible. So I think it's totally appropriate. The only question is who can let us edit the.
I will find out, because we can't edit it. What we'll do is Nona and I, that was my next point. You were sort of ahead of me. We will revise the text, and then I have to find out, probably with Elizabeth Martelli. I always call her Martinelli. I think probably Elizabeth is our point person there. And I'll also speak with Gabe.
Yeah, I would think if before you
Yeah.
just give it to Elizabeth and say,
Just
change
speak
it,
with
it would,
Gabe.
it would have to
Yeah.
be seen by someone in planning.
Yeah.
Probably maybe even the planning director, I
Yeah.
don't know. So I would say that what it is a streamlined version. It's essentially what we have been doing for years. It just puts some time constraints on it, makes them official, and takes out that the whole committee will do every single one of them, which we haven't done for as long as I can remember.
So I guess there's been some questions on whether more community members should be able to have an opportunity to weigh in on somebody else's tree permit. And so I think in some ways, making the process faster might not allow for residents to really have a way to voice their concerns about a tree permit that affects them. But
That's an interesting point, and I think really is important. And I think the way the ASCC deals with it is you have to send a letter to everybody within 300 feet or however, some distance, and to tell them what's going on, and then they can they have some window to comment. But that seems like a better way to make sure that the neighbors know and give them an opportunity.
So
That's it.
we talked about this at length when we were talking about these guidelines, and there's nothing in the mandate to us that suggests that we should do that, or request that we might do that, or suggest even that sometimes we do that. It just hasn't been part of it. In this particular case, it would have been important. And in fact, there was a little bit of misrepresentation that the neighbors knew and thought it was okay. But when you think about all the tree permits we see and what they, what's involved, to take everyone and say that all the neighbors around have to be notified for every tree permit we do seems like it's really unwieldy overkill. So I don't know how we tease out, and maybe we should think about this, the ones where it might be important, the number of trees, the closeness to the other things, But since we don't have a mandate to do that, it seems very, what's the word? Overweening of us in a way to start going, knocking on neighbors' doors when that's not part of what we were asked to do. In theory, we're asked to be very objective about the tree, that tree in that place. Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Is it endangering anything or anyone? And the answer is yes or no. And whether the neighbors like it or don't not like it is really irrelevant to the decision about the tree. So that's where we kind of came back to.
Can I just ask for a point of clarification? So it sounded like from Catherine that you were referencing, is there another town requirement that requires that the homeowner notify neighbors? Or
As a part of the ASCC package, you
Okay.
have to do that for sure.
Okay, but for an independent tree removal permit, it would not be required.
No. I was just proposing that that would be one way to deal with it, but I agree with you that most of them far and away they would just be slowed down by that process.
And we're very cognizant of neighbors. If there is a tree that is very close and possibly opens up a partner, if the tree is sick or not, particularly if we want to keep it, sometimes neighbors come and they are also part. We had this on Alpine. So we are doing that, but we don't need to do it for those. Right.
Not because we involved them.
Yeah, we are not, yeah.
But we have written reviews where we said that the owner should confer with the neighbor. If we
Yes.
thought the neighbor would be significantly concerned or impacted. So I think that's a judgment call we can also make in the review.
Okay, any other concerns or comments? So can we hear a motion to approve this?
So I just want to make sure I understand what we're approving, Marianne. What I thought I heard said was, this is a draft proposal and we're agreeing to the general framework that's in this draft proposal, but that there was going to be some additional language, work, refinement, et cetera. So I just want to understand what I'm voting on.
Yeah, so this is the process. What in addition will happen is that the text on the website will be updated. Because on the website, it has been saying that every tree permit is coming to the full committee, which has never happened. So, but that doesn't have anything to do with the process.
So what we're doing here is we're saying we are in agreement as a committee that this is the process and we are supportive of this process. And then the next step, action item, will be for whomever to then take it to the next point of implementation where we figure out how to communicate this more broadly, right? That's what
Right.
we're voting. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And let me just maybe, should I ask the public if they have input? Does anybody, David or Betsy or Dana, have a comment on this? No, nobody has their hand up. So, okay. So, all right. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this tree removal process tonight
Second?
I second.
Catherine? All in
as
favor?
written.
All in favor?
I
Unanimously, okay, unanimously approved. Okay. Where am I? I lost my point. Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm almost there. Okay, so then we have the 3 addresses where we had the tree permits. Did you have a chance to read it? Do we need to go over it? I don't think so. We were, okay.
My understanding was we were now including these and making them appendix just to get them in the public record so that people could see them. not because, and that they don't really need
Yeah.
discussing, they're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important that every committee member sees it. That is
Very-
the idea.
Mariana, you just jogged my memory. There was one thing that wasn't in the process, which was, and it was an actual tree report that was appended to what you sent out that brought this to mind. In the event the tree is dead,
Yes.
there is a slightly different process. You don't go out and see it.
If the tree is dead, we ascertain that the tree is dead
Okay,
because the tree might not be dead. We have discussed this in the subcommittee. It's the same process. So if we can ascertain with the tree report on the photo that the tree is dead, then we say the tree is dead, yes. If we cannot do that, we will go out.
I'm just suggesting that in the process, we should capture that. That's all. That there may be an instance, because the way I read the process, you go out. And you may not need to, because the tree's dead and it's obvious. And maybe I misread something.
It's not totally obvious. We have had, I've been on this for many, many decades. We have had people come in, we have a dead tree, and it was really just deciduous.
So the way I would describe it, and Nona, correct me, or we treat a dead tree in the same way generally as the other trees, insofar as the town does not have the burden to decide if a tree is dead. However, we have we are perfectly capable.
Verify,
And so-
verify.
And I completely agree, and I'm not trying to challenge that at all. I'm just reacting to one of the three reports that you sent out, which seemed to indicate to me anyway, that the tree was obviously dead. It was agreed it was dead. No visit was necessary. That when I read the report, that's how it read to me. That's all, Marianne. I just don't want to get us.
She's saying that
boxed
the
in.
process we just talked about says you will go out. And there are occasions when you don't go out. So maybe the language should say, we'll evaluate and visit as necessary or something like that.
How would we, if we put this to the website?
How about we just, if this is our process, we should put it in the process. We should just amend the language we just
Okay,
said.
so how,
And I do think that, back when Carol was on staff, she would occasionally ministerially approve removals because she'd been doing it for decades and knew who was who and would refer to us the ones she wasn't comfortable with. But that's not what the charter really says, so. Yeah, no, I understand.
Nona, do you want to do the wording? Yeah, let's do it now. So it would, but because we're saying we are going out, and so we would have to word something that it is up to the discretion, if the tree is dead, that we don't go out. But there must be a nicer word of saying.
I'm not even sure I'd say that. I would
Okay,
just
what
say
would you
when
say?
you get, when we receive the permit, we will do an evaluation of the request. And usually this requires a visit. Period.
So it'd be
You
in
don't have to
step
say dead
3.
tree, not dead
Okay.
tree. You just say that you use your discretion and decide.
Yeah, in step 3, tree subcommittee will evaluate the request and visit property most likely.
As
or
needed. Yeah.
Can I make a comment? I'm just wondering if you should also include in that section 3, that you're evaluating the trees objectively based on their health, based on their location, based on the construction impact, something like that. I think that would clarify a lot for people to know why you're evaluating.
Is that in the language that's on the website? Is that part of what's there? We could put the word objective in there somewhere. I'm not sure it makes sense to make a whole list because it's really our process, not our criteria.
Yeah, the thing is that most of the tree removal permits are not associated with home projects. So I don't know. I mean, each one of these things is completely different. It's
It-
really hard to.
Yeah, to summarize, generally, there is an issue about fire. And then it might be overhanging, and then all the applicant has to do is make it less overhanging. This is a simple situation. Then there could be the issue that the tree has structural issues and could fall onto the house. And if that is the situation, we always let the tree go, because that's a liability. So it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple.
Or there are requests that are generated by a requirement from an insurer that the tree be removed, even though we think it's not really a risk.
And the reason I think the town started this altogether was that people wanted to clear their lots for views, et cetera, and they wanted to protect the heritage trees. So we definitely get applications where really they just want it out for their view, or they saying, and they find arborists will say this is a diseased tree, and it's not. And which is why we mostly go out instead of rely on the pictures and things that they send. So,
I mean, residents are really grateful that we do this. Yeah.
unless they wanted the
Unless
tree
they
out and
want
we
to
say no.
clear cut the lot. And then we are there to not have the lot clear cut. Mhm. Okay, so where are we now? Moving on. Okay, we're moving
No,
on.
no, I think
No,
we were
we're not
changed.
moving on?
We voted to do the process, and now we want to change that one sentence in the process. I want to make a motion that amends the language in the process we just approved to say that, I don't have the language in front of me. Can you pass
Okay,
me the?
So I'll read all of three. Chair passes application to tree subcommittee. Within 2 weeks of getting application from town, tree subcommittee is its property, blah, blah, blah. So we'll
Okay,
say
I would
tree
change it to tree
subcommittee.
subcommittee will evaluate application and visit property where appropriate.
Mhm.
And then comma, encourages applicant to be present at visit and writes report. So that's all in
Right,
step
everything,
three.
just add that one little thing that
Okay,
says that you may not go out. Is that okay?
Second? Second. Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. Old business, broom pool. Judy.
Okay, broom pool, despite the drizzly weather, went very well this year, thanks mostly to the hordes of scouts, little scouts especially. We were teaming with little scouts. It went very well. It was pretty organized. We went out to just a couple of areas and then blitzed those areas. I think we did a really good job. We had a good turnout, and no firemen this year. There were potential groups that might have come that didn't come. I think we had fewer turnout than usual from kids needing community hours that next year we should do a little more advertising or outreach to those groups, because in previous years we've had, 6 to 10 of those, and those are good kids, usually adolescents.
I
with-
did send
Yeah.
an announcement to the Priory
Mhm.
biology people, and she said she was gonna send it around, so who knows?
There was somebody at Woodside High School that we had that list of people that we notified that, and I've lost track of who they are and
Yeah.
stuff, but we might need to reconstitute that list. And I think that's all.
We
for
have a
me.
picture. Can we quickly show
Oh,
a pre and
yes,
after
yes.
picture?
So while she's looking for that, I would like to say that we always do that, last minute, where should we go? Look around, even now when you hike, there are areas where you see big clusters of broom, and just note it and put it on a list. And so as we're coming up to it next year, we have a good list of places, because in some ways it's nice to send out a couple of smaller groups as well as these giant hordes of people. I was noticing that on Alpine, for example, where we've worked for years and years, the, all the big broom is gone, except on the downhill slope, but there's lots and lots of these guys, so that it might be that next year we'll need to go back there.
Okay, not working. Good try. Technical difficulties. We had the piles and it just looked really good. You were there, Teresa. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It was a great team effort. Are we done with the room pool? Okay, so the wildlife corridor and the fencing guidelines. The subcommittee, which is Nona, Judy, Megan, and I, we met last week and we looked at next steps. So the first step, as you all know, was the fence, the wildlife fence ordinance, which we have submitted to the town. And Rebecca has helped, I think, last week to remind the town that we have submitted to the town. And Terrence, I think he works 15 hours a week. So we'll just have to be patient. It will happen, right? Well, she's busy. It will happen. We have to see the squeaky wheel. It's sitting at the town. And it has been sitting there for 2 months. So as we had agreed, the next step was going to be to do the, what is it called? The
Wildlife corridors.
No, what's the word? The supporting document is the guidelines. So that's what we started discussing last week. And to just give you a timeline, so Assembly Bill 1889 requires that the conservation element considers the effect of development within our town's jurisdiction on the movement of wildlife and habitat connectivity by January 1, 2028. This is very far away and it will take a lot of work. And that's why we did the ordinance first and now the supporting guidelines for the ordinance. And the important point to see, we have a unique place in the world. So there is Portola Valley, and then there is Windy Hill, one open space. There is Jasper Ridge, another one, Hawthorne, another one, and to some degree, although it's not called open space, the Stanford Dish. And Arastradero. Thank you. So we are surrounded, absolutely surrounded by wildlife. And we absolutely need to understand that our town, as it will be necessary by the Assembly Bill, has to allow for the free movement of wildlife, be it in connectivity, in corridors, whatever you called it. And I would like to just quickly read something to you because it really hits it home. Wildlife corridors are patches or strips of habitat that allow wildlife to safely move between larger blocks of habitat. These corridors or linkages enable animals to escape predators, find a mate, better habitat, food and water, or habitat essential for a specific life stage. Dispersal is essential for maintaining genetic diversity in wildlife populations and for adaptation to shift in temperature, vegetation, water availability due to changing climate. Corridors can also provide living habitat for small and medium-sized animals. So this is a very good summary of what it is. It's not, my neighbor wants to put up a fence and I don't want to put up a fence. This is much bigger. And I was very encouraged when we had the mountain lion talk, how the audience understood that when, I forgot her name, the conservation person from the zoo, she was really good. She was talking about this. And so apart from the work here, we also need to, and Julie, you might want to say something because you were thinking along those lines. We do education. general education of our location, our important location. And it's more about just my fence in my backyard. Any comments from anybody? Nope. Okay.
I saw a raised hand, Marianne, on the computer.
I'm sorry. Somebody raised their hand?
Dana.
Okay,
I
go
did.
ahead.
Dana,
Dana,
can I
yes,
say
please.
something? The
Yes,
really,
please do.
the most important thing is that the genetics, you know, they need to be able to move back and forth so they can be with other creatures in their species. Otherwise, they're going to become too, you know, genetically infused, whatever the word is.
Inbred.
Inbred, thank you. They need to be able to get out of their pocket. And that's incredibly important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Couldn't have said it better. So that's where we are, and we'll just keep plugging away, and also plugging away that the ordinance goes into place. And then we're going to the next one. Judy, you're up again.
Right, so I'm gonna talk about the mountain lion lectures, and then use that as sort of a jumping off place for a couple of other things. The evening lecture that we co-sponsored, most of you were there actually, so you know it was a great success. 200 people signed up. I think probably 150 came.
No, come on. You're done. You're done leaving.
Somebody needs to, you're at home,
Can you
Dana,
mute
you need to
yourself?
mute.
Oh, I thought it was, never mind. Okay, sorry.
The zoo veterinarian talked, as you remember, which was very interesting, and then the conservation person talked, which was very interesting. So I would say it was a great success. The most of the work was done by the the Westridge Garden Club. A couple of those, the people who were really into this, used them as the vehicle to sort of make it happen, and then we, as you know, co-sponsored it to facilitate getting the town hall and all of that. And I think we got appropriate credit for it. And I thought it was a very successful evening. So there was also another talk just last night. Jay, blanking on his last name, who's Hartman, who's just a local resident, lives near Ormondale, had a good friend who works for the Nature Conservancy and is in charge of some of their flagship big properties. He gave a talk that was much more low-key and personal. His was primarily webcams from his own backyard. He lives in Hillsborough, Burlingame, sorry, he lives in Burlingame, and on about an acre. And he was talking about how although their habitat is like 100 square miles, that it's, you wouldn't think you'd see one very often, but he had these over the last couple of years. He had these mountain lions coming and going in his yard, and he had a whole bunch of webcams. So you saw them from different positions, but you saw a mother with 2 cubs. You saw a juvenile. You saw a mother sort of in the last stages of ditching the juvenile when it got big enough. You saw them jumping over 8-foot fences, jumping and grabbing on the top and then going down the other side. You saw them chasing deer. There was one amazing one where she could have gotten the deer and she didn't, and it looked like she was teaching her cubs what to do and how to do it. It was really quite remarkable. It was really good. So, you know, interest in this in town is very high now, and I think it would really behoove us to take this interest and fan the flames, if you will, and focus on it to really draw more attention to these areas that we think are so important. And in both of the evenings, wildlife corridors were mentioned and emphasized. Rodenticides were mentioned and emphasized. So I think our work, you know, rodenticides has sort of happened now. There's this moratorium at the state level, and hopefully that's going in the right direction. But wildlife corridors are real, you know, needs a push. And the idea of preserving habitat while we protect from fire is enormously on everybody's mind right now. So I think we should move up our evening lecture plans and really get on that and do a fire versus habitat, because summer's coming and everybody's going to, you know, start clear cutting their lots to protect themselves from fire. And while we have this interest in the pumas, we can really say, you know, you're ruining it for the small animals and the big animals, and really push back in a way that people can get behind instead of just being worried about their insurance. So I think that both the work that we're trying to do on wildlife corridors and the fire versus habitat issues are, you know, we should strike while the iron is hot, if you will.
Okay, and one, along the mountain lines, I just want to make one comment. You might or might not remember, Dana put a video, and it was an educational video, it's quite long, of a University of UC Davis guy about mountain lions. And Nona knows the guy, and she took the action item. She's going to reach out and ask him if we can allow, if they would allow us to take the YouTube video and put it on the town's website. Yeah, so that's one of the
Great
things we're
idea,
doing.
right. So I would suggest that we form a subcommittee right now. We talked about it last month, and you were going to talk to the fire people, but I'd like to help with
This is the
that
next
and-
action item.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, it is, yeah. So thanks for making it more speedy or whatever. So the Woodside Fire Joint Subcommittee. Couple of weeks, I asked around who wants to be on the event subcommittee, and you said yes, you said yes. You didn't say anything, but I assume you want to be on it as well. Okay, so that makes 4 because I want to be on it, and we can't be more than 4. Sorry. Damn.
Well, Catherine, if you really want to do that, then you do it.
No, that's
'Cause
fine.
I'm doing other stuff.
I think she was just joking, because I
I
didn't
was,
say anything.
I was just making a joke. So I reached out after we were briefly talking about timing to Kim. Kim immediately responded very positive. That's the event. She was out of town. That was 2 weeks ago. I sent her the email again. I haven't heard from her. But Kim is really good working through email. Phone doesn't really work. And one of the things why I brought this up, possibly moving our, if everybody agrees, our meeting up, Kim would probably come to the meeting. She comes to other people's meetings that are during the daytime. So anyway, and the subcommittee with the fire department has more than one topic. So the one with the event, and we want to push it up, so that's good. But also we need to have a uniform tree report by the fire department, because we have seen this with different people go out and say redwoods burn, redwoods don't burn. So that's one of the action items. And then we were working, Megan was working on it mainly, the Trichia and Broom guidelines in the fire ordinance. And I just need to follow up, has she done it? Because once it's in the guidelines, they are going to enforce it. Kim said they want to enforce it, which is much better than the town. The fire people can enforce the fire. And so it's my action item now to get a date with us, and Kim is the gating factor on that. Any questions regarding that? If not, then we'll move on to committees. Frog Pond.
Yeah, what I can report is we had a productive meeting with the school, that's with Judy and myself 2 weeks ago. And the 2 key items on our agenda was, do they have a plan yet for the construction staging area between the soccer field and the Frog Pond Park? And they said they don't have it. They recognized and accepted that they have to invasive plant management there, but they have no plan yet what to do with that piece of their property there. And then the other one is that we made it clear that we want to be included when the new security fencing installation project starts, and that they ensure that nothing happens on the Frog Pond side while the construction happened. So that was also acknowledged, and they will keep us posted and will include us in any communication. And then they also indicated that they may have to redo the soccer field. It's a warranty issue from the original installer, something went wrong. So they are still looking into that one. And then we had some other items, wildflower seeding and other areas. They cleaned up the islands behind the garbage cans, so it looks nicer now. So was good meeting.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Nona, open space?
So I have two updates. One is based on the joint subcommittee between this committee and open space, which consists of Judy, Nancy, Gary Nielsen from Open Space, and me. And I think I reported previously that we met in the field at Springdown on February 26th. At the time, the interim town engineer, Javad Mirsadi, couldn't join us, but it turned out that Kim Giuliacci was interested in mowing, and so we invited her to come, and she brought Dan Dempsey. So it was a good meeting with the fire district and the joint subcommittee, and we agreed to get moving on the mowing schedule, which involves four mowings per year and potentially weed reduction. I was scheduled to meet with Javad right after that, and I got notified a day or two before that he was leaving the town. So that sort of plan, which was in motion, got stalled. So Justin has gotten back to me that the first mowing will be in the first week of April, which is a bit late, especially with days like today, but at least it is in motion. The other thing I was trying to check on with that was whether or not our recommendation that the town allocate 65,000 for this open space maintenance to be taken from the open space fund, whether that had actually gone into effect. Not entirely positive it has still, but there have been charges on the warrant list from the open space fund. So I think that's a signal at least that the money is being used, but I don't see how it can all be used because the big ticket item on that is the weeding by Go Native, and the grass is just too thick to really do anything this year other than mow it as many times as we can get them to mow it. So we'll just have to see on that, but stay tuned. Justin gets it. He doesn't approve it. And so unless there's someone there to approve a plan, it gets stalled. The second thing to report on is really Dorothy Ford Park, which went before the Planning Commission. The planning director, Terrence Grindall, made a presentation for the Planning Commission in which he proposed that 2.48 acres of Dorothy Ford Park, an unspecified 2.48 acres, would be zoned for high density, 20 to 23 units per acre, in order to meet the requirement that HCD had established in order to recertify our housing element. The Planning Commission decided two things, basically. One is that they were not okay with taking the entire parcel of Dorothy Ford Park and Field, which is 7.6 acres, and not sort of delineating what the portion would be that would be zoned for high density housing. And secondly, that they asked the planning director to go back to HCD and see whether or not it would be possible to essentially restore the agreement that had been established before, that the commitment was there by the town to do the 50 units on some parcel, but that it might not really be administratively efficient to go through this whole zoning ordinance process, given that the ad hoc site evaluation committee came up with 4 sites for the town to consider as alternatives to Dorothy Ford Park, and that process is in motion. The town manager is at the point with the town planner of contacting the top sites in that list to see whether or not there there's enough of a there that you could go to HCD and say, you know, this is really in the works, and it would be, save everybody time and money if we didn't have to go through a process of parcelizing Dorothy Ford Park. Anyway, that's where it stands. We'll find out, I guess, you know, reasonably soon, whether or not the town staff, that is the town manager and planning director, are able to meet with the owners of the top two properties, the Fogarty's. Well, the first one is Village Square, is the top rated parcel from the Ad hoc Site Evaluation Committee, but then also Fogarty is second. And so it involves going to them, sort of, you know, figuring out what might happen there and who might be involved. At the same time, there is also the proposal from the Open Space Committee to make the Fogarty parcel that would be potentially partly a housing site, to make it open space through a town acquisition. And so these are kind of all kind of in the works together.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? When we walked around Springdown and the fire department of Dempsey indicated that they might do some mowing there, is that what's happening with the cooperation between Justin and the fire department? Because it would seem like if the fire department was willing to do even one or two of them, it would save the town the money.
My understanding of it, so what Justin told me is that the fire department has never done the mowing there. And that they have a contractor that they prefer to stick with. It wouldn't be free for the fire district to do it. It's just that they have enough of an agreement and a payment process, I don't know what it is, that they could do it and then get paid rather than having a contract in place or something like that. But it sounds like the town prefers to do it the way they've always done it. That's the best I can understand at this point.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, Public Works.
So Public Works was my responsibility when I was chair.
Okay.
It's now your
Ah,
responsibility.
okay, all right. Okay,
So-
okay.
Yeah, no, Howard was really good about contacting me about everything. Then, of course, when he left, that there were no Public Works updates because there was no contact. So that's just a remnant.
Okay,
and-
it's a remnant. Okay, all right. I have nothing to report.
Yeah,
But I'll work
someday-
on it. I'll work
someday
on
maybe.
it. Okay. Teresa, trails?
So that actually segues into trails because one of the items that's always on their agenda is what's going on with respect to trail maintenance and upkeep, et cetera, et cetera. And they've had no updates and they are trying to work through excuse me, trying to work through this interim period to just figure out how to get those updates because it comes up every single meeting. So it's completely in alignment with the expectation that we used to have that we no longer seem to be able to have. So there was a bit of time spent on that at the Trails meeting. And then the majority of the most recent Trails meeting was spent on identifying their goals for the next year and what the major projects are, which I thought was very interesting. And it was a very collaborative process, something I think we could learn from, where they actually, as a committee, went through and talked about various opportunities or ideas or things that they might want to be considering as they look to what they want to be doing over the next year. And not the least of which I thought was very interesting was trying to, they want to develop a comprehensive plan for new trails in town, which I thought was a very interesting opportunity. So stay tuned. It'll be interesting. They're going to have a presentation at the council meeting in April, late April, I believe. April 23rd.
Ah,
So-
interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Ask a
Um,
question, Teresa, is there any update on Shady Trail? What's going to happen with, there's the money, there's the plan,
Shady
there's the
Trail.
approval and. but it
So there
hasn't
was a
happened
very
yet.
brief discussion that the donation has been accepted by the town. It's gone forward to a contract and the contract has been signed.
All right, okay, hey. Okay, thank you. Wildfire preparedness, there was an update. The next meeting is going to be held in May. And there is a new member, and I forgot her name. I don't know who she is, but she also joined the EPC. So there is a new member who is on the EPC, and that makes a lot of sense. And then segueing in, I met with Mark Linda, which was a very good meeting. I think we met for an hour. I was trying as best as I could to sell us, and basically stressing that we are a body of expert people. We are experts on conservation, and I used the spring down maintenance plan, that we do things, we don't need $50,000 for a third party to do a maintenance plan like that. We are able to do that, and he thought it was great. And I actually sort of defined the because he wanted to understand the difference between open space and conservation. And I was sort of saying the open space people are the strategic people and they have money, and we are the tactical doers. So I hope this is okay that I position us that way. And he was also he was telling a lot about himself. It was an idea to get to know each other, and it was really nice. So I got an understanding about the man and what his priorities are. And then I mentioned, obviously, a lot of things that are important to us, like the fencing and the wildlife corridors, and he definitely voiced his support. I also mentioned the situation that, particularly in Westridge, people buy a property, they put in a beautiful regulation 4-foot fence in the front yard, and then a year later, whoop, the fence is twice as high. And he thought that was very interesting, and he said, I quote, he has the ability for enforcement. I didn't know that. So there is an independent contractor who does enforcement, and he said, if we tell him where, because we are not enforcers, he'll enforce. So I thought that was a very good note. Yeah, and that sort of sums it up. He promised he would get me the number for the money, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet. So then we need a few $100s for the beautiful banner. Thank you, Megan. You put single-handed together. It looks really good. I saw the picture. I didn't see the banner, but I saw the picture. I now reached out to staff and asking for the budget, and I'll just keep being the squeaky wheel because that's just what we have to do. So we don't know our budget. But he basically thought a few $100 for the brochure, because I mentioned we need the brochure, the Baghdad Habitat brochure. That's all. That's all we need. And I don't think there will be a problem, but I don't have the official number for you. Okay, so that's all I have. And then kudos, Judy.
I saw another hand go up, Marion.
I'm sorry.
I
say
think I
again.
saw another hand go up.
Oh, hang on. Thank you. Hand. Dana, hand? No? No, hand has gone. Do you still see hand? No, okay. Hand has moved on. In case it comes back. So,
Who knows? I thought I would, we don't say anything about individuals, but I thought I would do a generic one about thank you for all the people who did made the Mountain Lion talks, because then I can use that as a platform for emphasizing the rodenticide and the wildlife corridor ideas. Unless anybody has a better idea. Good.
by the way, Eliza, who, spoke here, she does work on rodenticides. And I was wondering, because she would be willing, if we would have her as an intern to work with us. We'll just have to figure out what that means, having an intern or a student member. She would be very interested. And I think I looked at her brochures. She does great work.
We've had student members in the past, remember, who didn't do much of anything. I think they wanted it on their credentials for college application. she seems a little bit more like a doer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would
Well,
expect she would
Yogi,
be happy.
can you take that as a second action item? Because I mentioned it to her, but I didn't really know.
Yeah, I don't
what's
have
the
her contact info, but if somebody could get me her contact info, then
Yeah, you want to contact her, not Yogi?
oh, I'm sorry. thought you-
I can contact.
Oh, I can do that.
Either way, it's
Add
fine,
it.
whoever wants
I'll
to.
add it to it, yeah.
All I have is her email. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, Dana,
Yes,
speak.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have all her contact information and I was going to say she should be on the conservation committee. You know, as a young person. I mean, she's got great stuff. So the
Yeah,
one
I
thing
agree, we just don't have an opening. so we
I
need
know,
to
but
call
next
her
time
a
you do.
student.
No, we can add her as a student member. We've had that before. We just agreed to do that, Dana.
Okay, I know you guys have been working on fences. I'd love you to emphasize right now all the cheater fences that are going up, people who are extending their 4-foot fence into an 8-foot fence. And, you know, that after coming out of these mountain lion talks, I'm just so, especially the cubs. I mean, one of the reasons why the cubs were on Grove Drive was that there are no fences down in there. That Tintern Grove, all down in there is fenceless. So it's like a huge meadow with the creek going around it. And I always intuited that that's where they were because of the lack of fencing. But this cheater fence thing now, it's really getting out of control. It's ugly. You're not supposed to do it. And also, anytime you see a double fence, it needs to be removed immediately because fawns get in there and they die. They can't get out and they can't get to their mother. So
Yes, we agree.
okay, good. I just really want you guys to get on cheater fences. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the thing we just discussed. It's the same thing. Okay. Tip of the month. What would you like to do?
So tip of the month, I think maybe being aware of nesting birds right now.
Yes.
They're just,
So that people don't cut their trees. Mm.
yeah.
Okay, and what's blooming now? Lot.
So I think it was today, Elizabeth posted so I have a 3-part spring thing. So March is early, like milkmaids and wake robins and houndstone. Next month
Catherine.
is
Catherine.
another, next month is another 8 or so of the things that bloom a little bit later. And then May will be the end of the spring bloom. Again, multiple flowers. So that's the plan for the next 2 months.
Okay, sounds good. And let's move on to the new business. It's yours.
Yes, and let's see, maybe the file sharing will work this
Yeah,
time.
let's try.
So, oops. No.
You were there.
Hmm.
I don't. Is that under participants?
Yeah, it says.
Do you remember? You might have done it.
Can we jump ahead then? And while you guys are working on the technical, can we talk about whatever item C is?
Right, click.
Just rather than sit here.
No.
AstroTurf.
So,
Yeah.
Why don't you take the AstroTurf? You were one of the people while we're doing this. No,
I don't know much about it. I just
I'm
And I
trying.
don't know what your plan was, but the issue came up.
Actually,
Around
I,
us, yeah.
I think I was the one who
Yeah,
raised
you
the
were,
issue,
okay,
so
good,
maybe
so
I'll just,
please.
I was gonna try and present something on this, but it seems like we don't have the technology for making people panelists, so I'm just gonna talk about it maybe. So we had a site review where in the second round, we learned that the lawn alternative was going to become synthetic turf or astroturf. And so I asked around, have we ever done this? Because the only one I could remember is that we said absolutely no to Priory doing an athletic field as synthetic turf. And it sounds like there never has been a firm policy by this committee on whether it's appropriate for residential properties and that there are pluses and minuses. So I've done some looking into it now, and my strong sense is that opinion is shifting against synthetic turf, that it used to actually be the case that in California, you couldn't ban it because it was considered drought tolerant. But as of last January, it is no longer considered in California to be drought tolerant, and so it is possible to ban it. And Millbrae has done that, Santa Maria has done that, and LA is considering doing that. And the reasons are that even though synthetic turf is considered low maintenance, durable, and has what people like as a consistent appearance, there's increasing evidence that it creates heat islands, so it really heats up. People then hose it down in order to cool it off. And as a result, you end up using about as much water as you would for a lawn, that people like it for pets to some extent, but because dogs poop on it, then you end up with bacteria that don't decompose because you don't actually have contact with soil organisms. Obviously, it has a big carbon footprint because it's made from hydrocarbons. And what's changing the most, though, is that are the environmental concerns about it being not biodegradable, not recyclable, and ending up in landfills after about 15 years, but also that it contains PFAS chemicals. So it's generating PFAS exposure to children, and it's producing significant quantities of microplastics. So that's why some towns are now starting to rethink it and even start to ban it. So what Millbrae is requiring, yeah, is it Millbrae? Let me just check. Yeah, it's Millbrae is requiring that says you can't put it in anymore. And that when it starts to break down, if you have an installation already, you can't replace it with the same stuff. So I'm just wondering if we should, sort of put together some kind of a fact sheet and think about whether or not it makes more sense to actually advocate for a policy by the town to not allow it, or when to allow it, I guess.
I am 100% in favor of that.
The committee has dealt with this maybe 10 years ago or so. And there is some stuff that we wrote at the time. And I'm not sure whether it was the Priory or whoever wanted it, but we dealt with it. And
It was the track at the Priory.
And, I think people have distinguished between athletic fields and tracks and things versus residential uses because they're smaller areas in general, but the exposure to families and kids is even higher, younger kids. So I don't know. I guess I think we all want to give people the flexibility to have the yards they want, but maybe people don't really realize what all the implications of using it.
I think it's also a vector for diseases like MRSD, what is that, MRSA?
MRSA.
MRSA, yeah, yeah. And I believe that the professional sports are not using it for that reason.
I did some research on that, and apparently it's sort of 50-50 at this point, whether or not athletic fields are using. But the players apparently don't like it because it's more abrasive than grass. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's hard to find a consistent.
I think it would be a great idea for us to have a subcommittee sort of work on it and come up with recommendations and ideas and maybe have a year or so where we push that as an educational thing and then segue into thinking about banning it rather than going from, oh, we don't like it, let's ban it. About, is there a size that's
We could do a tip of the month to kind of introduce the topic,
right, but
maybe
but
a little bit
first
later.
We really ought to have a subcommittee that
First,
sort
we
of
have to
expands
research.
on what Nona has
Sure.
done and get some talking points and all of that, but
Mhm.
yeah, and expand
You
it
know,
to the month.
maybe we can flip this to Rebecca because it may be something that sustainability has looked into in the past. Is that?
Sustainability is on hiatus.
Okay.
Well, let's do a subcommittee. I mean, and there was,
I'd be interested in that, so make the note, whoever's doing minutes.
Megan, you interested? You brought it up. The three of you or some other people? You're full. Okay, so Catherine,
And
Megan, the third. Teresa, there we go. Okay,
perfect.
and then you do your research, you come up with the usual. Perfect, okay.
Could I make one little suggestion for the subcommittee is, my neighbor, who's a couple doors down from me, actually has a little plot of fake grass for her pets. So she did an enormous amount of research on it before she decided to move forward with it when she built the house, her new house. So I would just perhaps have you talk with her and just find out why she chose it. I mean, it's not a big, huge plot, but it is. But I mean, she chose different plastics to make the colors look kind of less fake. But yes, I don't know her experience since then. It's been many years. You know, she has these little French bulldogs or something. So she didn't want them exposed to, what is that toxic plant that makes dogs sick? Anyway, there's some little plant that can show up in the grass or whatever. So she wanted to really keep the pets totally confined. So it might be worthwhile to actually hear kind of the other side of it.
Yeah, she lives on Shawnee. I remember when her application came in. So it was a new build. Cherokee, yeah. Okay.
Okay, we have a couple questions.
Hand, hang on. Whose hand?
Betsy and Dana.
I only see you. I see your screen. I don't see you.
I don't have too much to say other than bravo. I'm so pleased that there's going to be a subcommittee focused on this. I wondered whether there was an opportunity to reach out to Woodside and maybe have, more weight and more active engagement on this subject so our impact would be felt that much more, meaning that their open space and conservation committee equivalent. It's so important, and I'm actually somewhat confused why there isn't an assembly bill outlining it entirely, but I suspect that's where this is headed ultimately. And then finally, I think it would be terrific for the ASCC, the planning commissioners, and our town council if there were a position paper on file, maybe ultimately for staff as they review plans to do what they can to dissuade people from going that direction. But thank you so much for surfacing this.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you for the suggestions. Good suggestions. Okay.
Dana has questions.
Yeah,
Dana?
I mean, I did a lot of research when the Priory was coming forward. And I mean, the big thing is that it needed to be replaced every 6 or 7 years, put on a ship to go to China to be, to be composted there or whatever they do with it. We also, in terms of the Priory, the fence it needed to be fenced so that people could not go in with dogs, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there are a lot of problems with it, but I hope eventually that something happens. But anyway, you got a lot of research to do on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All
And
right.
in the meantime, we have the issue of while we're doing this, a plan comes through and it specifies AstroTurf. So the committee really probably ought to do a quick and dirty, we haven't looked into it in depth, but, and I don't know.
We've had that over the last couple of years, and we've brought it up, and we've kind of put Band-Aids on it. So it's not inconceivable. In fact, I think we just saw it again, didn't we? To a small scale.
Because I think the people who do it mostly thinking they're saving water. So if you could just, have a little bullet point thing that talks about how back that what they know now about it not saving water.
Yeah, the other thing is, we actually had a site review that was due before this meeting, so it's already gone in, but making sure people understand that it should be considered impervious surface because of the way the soil is prepared with base rock or whatever, but water runs off AstroTurf in general. So that's another reason to think about what the limits are.
Yeah, I actually think this could help a lot in terms of defining it as a impervious surface. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, subcommittee.
Okay, I would like to talk about, anyway, okay, so this is the way it's gonna go. A program that's a joint program through the Association of Bay Area Governments and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And this is a part of the larger Bay Area 2050 program. But this is a program of where local governments can nominate conservation areas that they think would be priorities. And once those things have been accepted, then they would be eligible for grants. So my next slide is what is a PCA. So they're designated geographic areas that are nominated by the local jurisdictions. And they're to support conservation, resilience, and sustainability goals. And specific projects within those PCAs can be eligible for future funding. So that's what the program is. There are several designations. When you apply to become a priority conservation area, there are 5 designations. There's natural lands and agriculture working lands, neither of which are appropriate for Portola Valley. But all of the things that we have talked about would fall into either recreation or urban greening. And literally everything would be in urban greening because it's within the town limits. Recreation would be another designation for some. And then there's the climate adaptation, which is it's not one that you can apply for individually, but it would be an overlay so we could do urban greening and climate adaptation, for instance, for particular areas. Now, as I mentioned, this program's been going on for a while. It was initiated in 2007. And it just last year, they really revamped the whole program. And one of the things that they did, the initial program was done in such a way that you could actually name your whole town as a priority conservation area. And it was pretty cool because you could just name your whole town, but they found that it was really difficult to manage because each project within these things is different. So they really want the areas to be defined. But this map right here shows you in our area all of the lands that have already been designated as priority conservation areas. And I will make the point that MRS Mid-Peninsula has already designated all of their land as a priority conservation area. So we would be filling in the gaps, and I think you can see if you look at this, the Hawthorns is right here, Arastradero is a little to the left, and then Windy Hill. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, over there. So anyway, Rebecca had her intern, Benjamin Fair, take a look at this program a little more closely. And he proposed a number of the open spaces as things that could be nominated for either recreation or, again, urban greening proposals. There are a couple other areas that I think are really, really worth considering. And one of those is the potential trail connector from the Ridge Trail, which is adjacent to the Fogarty Winery. So you can see the Ridge Trail is the red line. It ends here at Skyline and then picks up over here. And if we had access to this property right here, the trail could be extended. And so if we could go ahead, since it's within city limits, I believe, and name it as a PCA. And so at some point in the future, we could apply for grants once all the bottlenecks of getting that process started. It could help with the funding of it. And trails are expensive. So again, this is from Nona's thing a couple years ago. You can see these parcels right here, and that would be where the trail would go. So that's another thought. And then to piggyback on the theme that's come up like 100 times tonight is the migration pathways. And so I think, personally, I think doing the Alpine Road Scenic Corridor as a priority conservation area would be really important, because it's a connector, and Nona really went into detail on this for the open space, but between the Hawthorns, the Frog Pond, and Windy Hill. And as we have discussed, it's really, really important for these corridors to be enhanced. And I don't know about specific projects in the corridor itself, but I do know that if Frog Pond is included in that, we already have a plan to go forward, so we could apply for a grant. But anyway, so this is another one that's worth considering for the priority conservation areas. And I guess my last thing is really kind of reviewing, maybe at a high level at this point, the different sites, and maybe doing a strategic thing and actually going through the process once with one geographic area. And then it's a rolling nomination process. This one, and the deadline is May 2nd for this one, but they will continue, and you can add on to them. You can add other geographic areas onto existing ones or create new ones within the same framework. But I just see, this feels like a no-brainer to me. The only thing is that it would require a little bit of staff time to create the slides, and it would have to go to the town council, because the council would need to approve it. So I don't know whether May 2nd is realistic for any of these things. But as far as the staff time goes, the ABAG and MTC have already created a template of PowerPoint slides that can be used for the presentation to the town council, with just a few local items, place for local items to be put into the slide. So it's like the slide deck is already there. So I don't know. What do people think?
Definitely think we should do it. It seemed like somebody had their hand up, but I'm not really sure.
Well, we have to first discuss it.
The hand went down.
Comments?
I have some questions.
I have I have a comment. You start with your question. The properties that you apply for the PCA, did they have to be town-owned or they're just within the town?
Within the town.
limits?
I think in the case of the trail connector, it would make sense to do that in tandem with the property owner. But then other things like, the Alpine Road corridor,
Yeah, the town owns that, so.
yeah, so, so I think again that, we'd have to, it would behoove us to work with Fogarty on, or whoever owns those parcels to do it. But there's no downside to it. It's not like we're forcing anybody to do anything. It's just, laying a framework if they want to do a conservation project in the future.
Would it, Fogarty in any way limit the potential of going forward with the housing proposal there? If it's made a conservation project?
I'm not sure how, so tonight is the first time I heard about the Fogarty housing possibility. My assumption would be it would be at the other end of the property. Because it's going to be way up by Skyline, but I don't know where that, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's accessed by Skyline.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
accessed by
yeah.
Skyline? Yeah. So, we don't have to do we could still name it a PCA, but we don't have to do the trail project and, something may come up, something may not come up.
Well, I
think
think extending the trail may have been part of what they were thinking also, so
They
it's-
were.
it all does dovetail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the right project to start with.
So I would just suggest if we're talking about extending trails, we have a town trails and paths committee, and I think it would be appropriate to engage with them as well, just to kind of understand, what it is. So I'm not sure if there's something, a presentation or something that could be put on the agenda for their next meeting or whatever.
So just, this is not proposing any trails at all in any way.
I
This
guess I
is
misunderstood.
this is just a blanket designation that this is a conservation area. And if we were to make a proposal to work on the trails or apply for a grant for the trails, then it would be totally appropriate and probably should be driven by the Trails Committee. This is just laying the groundwork for anybody who wants to move forward with any projects. This is like the lottery, right? You can't win if you don't play.
Could I ask another question in terms of the Alpine Road scenic corridor? Would you not consider doing the entire length from Ladera, the edge of Ladera, all the way to? Because then you have the whole creek situation, which.
You have
is-
the whole creek and you'd have it connect up to Rastradero. I think that would be, I think it makes a lot of sense to extend it as far as possible. The only issue is, drawing the map and defining the geographic area. And to be honest, I haven't played with that tool very much because I didn't want to spend a lot of time learning it if I didn't need to.
Tool that piece, the.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
provided
yeah.
online, yeah.
So.
I'm
Nona
just-
has a question and I have a question.
I had one other question was in terms of staff time. What are you anticipating in terms of staff time?
I have no idea. I have no way of.
Why
knowing.
is it staff time? Why is it not something we can do?
So I don't know. Maybe it could be just done by, I mean, other than the numbers of the regulations or of the code or whatever, if they're, there's always numbers, right? There's that are assigned to particular tasks. So I don't know what those numbers are, but I could figure it out, I'm sure. But it would still, I would feel more comfortable if it was reviewed by staff. But I could do a draft for sure. That wouldn't be a
Nona had a question. I don't know. Ask me.
Could you say something about, this is a means to an end, presumably, if right?
Mhm.
You say it makes us eligible for grants. Could you give an example of what the grant would be that we would want? Designations, if it's.
Sure, sure. Well, so-
Like, what has MidPen used it for? Or other more similar entities? sort of
Yeah, so I
town
printed
units
out-
within a town, what kinds of things would Portola Valley actually want?
right.
To get a grant to do that this would allow us to apply for?
So I have printed out the last 3 years worth of, and most of them are trails. Trail extension, Coyote Creek Trail, Brokaw Road to the Union Pacific, Twin Peaks Connectivity Conceptual Plan. That was the first year. Second year, Arroyo Road Trail, urban greening in West Oakland, Bay Trail at Point Molate. A lot of trails and connectivity. But I do think that as we move forward and there's visions of changing Alpine Road, we're gonna have to think about the trails that are alongside the Alpine Road, and this may be a way to get funds to help with that.
I have a question, Catherine, you might not know the answer yet. So, particularly with the Alpine, with the corridor, with the scenic corridor, you said it would be not open space, not open land, it would be recreation. And I would like to know, what does that mean? And the reason why I'm asking is, can it then become a dog park or? Because
No, I understand.
recreation, I remember we were so afraid that Springdown could be used, the open space for recreation.
Right. And to be honest, my preference would be to do the urban greening designation. And everything in urban greening has to be within the town limits. And they're expanding tree cover, expanding stormwater management, enhancing urban creeks for ecological functions. Those are all things that I think we could easily argue. And then
Just as long as we are not quote unquote watering down what we've got. Because at the moment, the scenic corridor is quite protected. That's all I'm asking.
yeah, so I don't think it would do anything to interfere with anything that's been done previously.
That's good to know.
Yeah. But definitely, habitat and migration and connectivity are things that are throughout this whole program. And, obviously trails are a big part of it.
So if it is trails, then we probably have to throw it over the fence.
Or do a
Joint.
joint subcommittee. I think that if
Yeah,
it's likely trails are gonna be part of it, rather than waiting, it would make sense to make a presentation to trails now at their next meeting, especially if their priority is new trails. If one of their priorities for the year is coming up with new trails, they might be really interested in this.
So my question is, to what end for this first process?
Well, if they want new trails, the town doesn't have any money for new trails right now. So that.
No, I
the
know,
end
but,
would be-
so that's for the grant process. We're only talking right now about the designation process.
Right, no, I
And,
understand.
and I think that the designation would be owned by the town.
Right.
And so any committee that wanted to do something within a priority conservation area would have a free rein to make their own grant. And, we could be around for guidance or whatever, but I don't see this as a conservation. I don't see this as a conservation owned thing. I think this is a conservation giving something to the town
Initiated.
that everyone can use. That's the way I look at it.
It just seems to me it would make sense to involve other potentially very pertinent committees rather than going off, leading the pack.
I don't see any, so I don't see any reason not to inform them. But I guess what my question is, do we need permission from them? Sorry, do we need permission
I
from
mean,
them?
I'm not thinking permission, I'm thinking about cooperative working on the project. And the other piece of it is staff time is going to be very hard to come by. We've talked about this in the past and haven't really done it. It seems to me that this kind of thing where an intern to the committee, somebody from San Jose State who's majoring in environmental
Rebecca's
studies
intern
or,
might help, might be
any,
able to help.
there'd be any number of people like that who might see a project like this as being a wonderful thing to work on, a great way to get experience and to have something on their resume. So that just for the nasty part, you don't want to be doing yourself. All the things you were talking about being hard to do that staff would need to do.
Yogi wants to have
Yeah,
his go.
can you switch to the listing of the places?
Yes.
Because there I'm concerned, it says Coal Mine Ridge. I think we have to engage the property owners because to have that as recreation, that's a nature preserve. So I would say that we and Blue Oaks would not support that word in any of the submissions. So as I said, how is that ending up in there? at
It
this
was,
point?
so this is existing open spaces that could be designated as priority conservation areas. So they don't have to be, none of these have to be
No, I
designated.
understand, but as we had before, the word recreation,
That's what
um,
worries me. too,
we
yeah.
don't want that shown up in conjunction with Coal
What-
Mine Ridge between the.
Oh,
Trails are
yes,
recreation.
so, yes, so that was suggested, and maybe I should have taken that column out
Yep.
before I proposed it. My thought would be to not do any recreation at all, to do only our urban greening. Because I think it fits a little bit better with what we are trying to achieve.
It feels like maybe there needs to be just one more layer of clarification, maybe a list of pros and cons, if there are any restrictions on property that could come out of a PCA designation, or just including that as a clarification and a clear proposal of exactly, which properties you're proposing to designate as what and what that means. And then I think I would also add one layer, which as a landscape architect who considers pursuing these grants, they are generally pretty thoroughly restricted for underserved communities. So if we decide to go after this, it would be challenged and would need to have a lot of community involvement to make a competitive grant proposal.
Did I say that we were applying for grants?
No, but just
I did not say that we were
thinking
applying
ahead
for,
to if
not
that's,
applying for grants today. We're
is
applying
there
for the
another
designation.
benefit to the PCA designation? I'm just trying to think ahead to, okay, we want to do this groundwork to enter this lottery. How significant are our chances and how much do we want to invest?
Well,
in it?
so I will tell you that, no nominated PCAs have ever been rejected, ever, in the 18 years that
If there
they've
were
done
no
this.
money in the pot at all, if there was no money, potential money attached to this, would there be compelling reasons to do it?
I think not.
So it is about the money.
I mean, sure, it's about preparing yourself to accept, to get money. And in this era of zero money, so what I'm saying is I'm offering my personal services to do this entire thing for the town so that we were prepared. And if somebody wanted to do a project, they didn't have to spend a year getting the PCA, and especially since we're surrounded by PCA properties. I mean, this is all of this that's around us is already PCA.
And
property.
that's
I'm not-
neither urban greening nor recreation. That's the land, open land.
I
or-
don't know what the specific designations are for those ones, for like Windy Hill I might be able to figure that out from the materials, but, they would be either natural lands or agriculture working lands if they were outside of the city limits. Or they could be recreation.
Because the one thing I tend to agree with Yogi, if there is something like Los Trancos that is already open space, I don't think we want to touch it because we could only call it regreening, and I don't think we want to do that, or we would call it recreation, and we certainly don't want to do that. So if
Well, I
there,
think her-
Why would we
but her
not want
point
to
is-
designate it as urban green?
because it's already open space, that's the best we can get. There is nothing better than open space. It's, if you go into the other categories, then you will have dog parks and what have you.
But
And-
but I think the problem is that when we hear recreation, we think pickleball courts. And in fact, if most of their grants have been for trails, there is a good reason to include that land because you work on those trails and it costs money to maintain those trails and you have to have volunteers to do those trails. And if you could get grants to help you with those trails, that would
No,
be fabulous.
I think that's correct, but then we should be careful or carefully reviewing the wording. If you go back to that one chart and maybe it's just where you list the properties. For example, Coal Mine Ridge is also a private open space. So we have to be very careful in what we show other people or not, because I'm not opposed to it, but we have to have clear understanding of the wording and then also how to designate some of those places.
Can we request some clarification for a future meeting? And I don't know if it needs to be.
Yeah,
be-
I
so-
volunteer to work with Catherine on getting more detail so that, next time we talk about this, it's
So-
not 9 o'clock
Right.
on a Tuesday.
Okay, so that decision is made. Great.
Okay.
I-
So we have a
so-
subcommittee basically
Yeah,
of the two of
And
you.
we're not gonna do the May 2nd. We can't do. the
No,
May
it's not.
2nd.
Yeah. And I tend to agree with Judy. I think staff time is not, particularly if I think what I was speaking with Mark Linder, is that we do the work and the staff doesn't have to do anything.
We can't get staff time to get
Later.
fences approved, we
Yeah.
can't get staff time to do simple 1 hour things, so.
But thank you for doing this. I mean, this is, you're enthusiastic. I would just set the expectation that the primary framework has to come out of work of the committee. And staff, if we need something from staff, that has to happen later before we have to have done some work and we have to have done some slides and what have you. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
And Catherine, don't take it that we don't love this idea. or
No,
I
yeah.
think it's fascinating and I'm really glad we got a chance. It's just questions. It's like, well, what about this? What about that? So,
Yeah, so
it's not meant as negatively
I
as
got
I
it.
think.
We support you, we support you. Okay, all right.
Are you
Um,
taking public comment?
Oh, there's a hand up. Okay.
Yes, for a while I've been hoping to speak. I will say that I have a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for this idea. I don't see it as having any downside whatsoever. Of course, there's much to be learned. It's just the first pass. But I wanted to bring the committee's attention. I looked at it, looked at some of the background and materials that Catherine posted to the meeting agenda and noted that the 2024 grants that amongst those that were awarded, there were 2 for wildlife connectivity, one of those being in Coyote Valley, one for wildlife connectivity in Coyote Valley in 2024, another one back in 2019 that I saw, that being for the wildlife underpass at Highway 17. That's an ongoing project for many years now, but has reached the engineering and design phase and due to break ground in 2 years, I think. But also relevant. So wildlife connectivity in corridors is quite relevant. So I really liked the map there that you shared that Nona made. The other connect to the Fogarty subject was that Rancho Cañada del Oro, which is in southern San Jose County on the west side of the on the west side of 101 and in the hills, they received an award for the Bay Area Ridge Trail. And, you know, it's just a lovely coincidence that that was one of the other slides that you showed today. I can imagine working with the Fogartys, perhaps in anticipation of a future deal, but even apart from it. So one of the I particularly liked Rebecca's comment too about the potential of extending the wildlife corridor beyond the Hawthorns, where it currently the map ends, connecting it all the way down to Ladera, and taking advantage of the creeks, because creeks too are wildlife corridors. So connecting our wildlife corridor to the creeks. But then finally, I want to thank you all for surfacing Assembly Bill 1889, of which I had not heard prior to tonight. And since you've earmarked it appropriately as being a lot of work, I want to, this is short term. Rebecca will still be in office. Even if she decided one term was enough, she'll still be in office when we have to turn our homework in. So if it's a mammoth amount of work we want to get going, and since it's asking us to consider the effect of development on wildlife, it seems to connect beautifully. So even if this extremely generous offer that Catherine is making weren't to have the result that we envision and hope that it will, it could be very easily purposed towards the 1889, which is mandatory. So thank you so much for bringing it forward. I'm very happy and would be delighted to have you come to open space and present it at some point.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. All right, on that upbeat note, we'll close the meeting. Next regular meeting, April 22. Do we have a quorum? Yeah, we usually have a quorum. Okay, meeting adjourned. Why did it take so long? More business. Leave meeting. Yes.
I think in your next meeting or so, you're gonna have to start thinking about your budget next year.
Yes, yes.
Start thinking about your
Yeah,
priorities.
very good. That's very good.
And
Budget,
the other
yes.
thing, I should have probably mentioned something. Whatever. I was driving around last night and I got back from the.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I
Hopefully
missed
they
it,
kind
yeah.
of- hopefully they- Check out, it's a wonderful.
Okay, yeah.
I drove around because a friend of mine pointed out that on Fawn, there's like Las Vegas style Christmas trees.
You're kidding me, on the farm?
Yes. And
I
there's two. There's one
Yes,
that has this
I see that
massive-
house from my kitchen. It's,
And then there's another one that has
Yes.
just one tree. But then
Yes.
as I was driving from there to my house, everyone in Wisconsin has uplifted.
you want us to look into lighting?
Yeah, dark skies.
Yeah.
And I was gonna send out.
Thank
a
you.
note
Yes,
just
I
about
support
what
you
the
fully in that.
Dark skies regulation are, because everybody has lit up
It's
their trees
insane.
with,
My
Christmas
neighbors,
tree
it has gone out of control.
It's
Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you.
But
Okay,
think
I
that's
need,
my gift. I forgot.
yeah, thank you. I need to catch her.
You know, I was just like. I didn't. I came on the garage. I was a little. Yeah, I was a family. That's fine. Yeah. Just write up your application as if you were doing it and don't have to. Right. Staff. Right, so that's fine. Nobody there. Yeah, that's fine. I can do it. So, that, yeah. All right, I am out of here. Tired. Good night, everyone.
Oh God, how do I turn this off? How do I turn this off? Okay, okay. So